Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. One of the most misunderstood things about the Bible is that God in the Old Testament is talking to the righteous. He's not talking to all the Jews. This is clarified in the New Testament where it says that there's a broad path to destruction and there's a narrow way to life. And so as the Jews were misbehaving in the story, there was said to be a small group of Jews who were eventually going to need to obey God through someone else to get to heaven. It's the simple answer here. And we saw that come to pass with my mother and my father being blameless, where the Igbos are said to be the Jews of Africa. And it's a long complicated story as to why that is and why flesh and genetics don't mean anything. And my mother is part Jewish. Okay? So even though they're not obeying God through me, there's that kind of connection there. Okay? The kingdom of heaven was taken away, and I'm first and foremost a Royal African Falcon, Royal Black African Falcon martial art hero and king, and the king of kings. And, the Jewish genes in me are recessive like the white genes. No offense to anyone, this is how it is. So we see in Leviticus 26, God says, if you let your pride come between you and me, and I'm going to break that stubborn pride, the masses of you will go to hell, and a small group of you will go to heaven. And that's what's happened here, where my parents are blameless, and on behalf of God, I've ruled that my parents are going to heaven. He said in Isaiah 57, the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. He says, but you offspring of a sorceress, you who follow Baal and Asherah, and so on and so forth, that you're going to hell. So the sky becomes like iron. Why? Because chains are iron. Because an iron scepter is ruling over them from the heavens. And the ground becomes like bronze. These things are figurative. Is there literally a person in the sky, judging them? No, it's spiritually speaking. And obviously the heavens are more impressive than the earth. And where the earth is impressive, it's like where the heavens have impressed itself on the earth. That's why women are supposed to choose the divine person. They're supposed to choose me, and historically the righteous people who resembled me in various ways in terms of spiritually speaking. But they didn't do that, did they? And people might be nice these days. They might somewhat seem like me to some degree, but it's not the same thing, I assure you. So we see that the ground becomes like bronze, right? His feet are like burnished bronze. We said in Revelation. So the ground, right, heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool. And I come back like a thief in the night because everyone's doing the wrong thing but me. So it's like pitch blackness, and here I come to punish. And says, woe to those who are shamefully exposed, right? Because you don't have the fine linen that stands for the righteous acts of the saints, the parable of the 10 virgins, 10 minas, bags of gold, wise and foolish builders, the parable of the rich fool, and so on and so forth. So people are going to hell. And one of the main things you need to understand is in Ezekiel, I want to say Ezekiel 14 or so, or 17 or something, it says that the people who think they're worshiping God but actually following someone other than God through me. So if you're not following God through me, you're not following God. So they're being lied to, and God is allowing it to happen because it's their stubborn pride that has them on earth, which is transformed in hell. And those people who want to argue with me about it, there's a lot of idiots who want to argue with me about it. Okay, it says right there in Revelation 6, and it's clear as day. It says, behold a pale horse, and on it sat death, and hell followed with it. Where is hell going, right? There's death right there. The body without the spirit is dead. It's coming to earth. Now, if you're about to turn the earth into heaven, would you first turn it into hell? No. Okay? The earth, first of all, is full of animals that, take a, I'm going to have to kind of speak bluntly here, that take a crap on the ground. Okay? It's full of all kinds of filth. And in the end, hell is raised. You think magically they're going to go from that to immediately turning into heaven? No. That's part of what the parable of the wise and foolish builders are about, right? The spirit is everything. The flesh means nothing. The material world means nothing. The spirit is everything. And you see all these new age people who say things like they believe in, matter, as absurd as it is, in energy and not God. No one knows the nature of matter and energies, but everyone with sense knows there's a God. But they do not believe in what is obviously true, which is God, but they believe in just that. And that's the devil's argument, right? The cult of the flesh. So those who are focused on the world are going to hell. Now show me one person who argues that heaven is magically going to come to earth, who isn't clearly a Satanist or Luciferian, who isn't clearly just using psychology and theater arts. It doesn't exist. It does not exist. But the top martial artist ever possible is telling you heaven is not going to come to earth. That's never going to happen. Not to this physical world. The people here are cut off from God, like it says in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and Jeremiah and so on and so forth. And that's how the Bible ends. In Revelation, outside the gates are the people you see around you right now, unless I'm around you, which I'm probably not. They're liars, right? They practice falsehood. They're cowardly, right? This is the end. So outside, who are you around? When all is said and done, when the storm is swept by, the righteous stand firm with God forever. In the spiritual realm, the wicked are either in hell or they're in the flesh on their way to hell. So who's around you, right? They're idolaters, they're liars, they're thieves, they're murderers, they're rapists, they're cowards. They're people who think that they can repent with a bunch of hypocrites in church. You're in a place that is not good. It's the top layer of hell. And after my flesh dies, that's it. If you don't know I'm right, you're an idiot.